I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. So honored that everyone is joining us. Drive time. So much is happening in the world, and so much is happening so quickly that it's nearly impossible to completely process it all. The closing of the Department of Education, the ongoing struggles between the cabinet members and Elon Musk, and I don't think there's any way to call it anything other than that, the impending surrender of the Ukrainians under a deal that seems to be negotiated between the United States and Russia. Its broad-based implications for Europe, for Poland, for American security, for American treasury. Yes, the United States, whether in this administration or in subsequent administration, will spend billions of dollars securing Europe, Poland, Germany, France, England, the Baltic states that are still in the West. So much at stake. And I can't think of any guest greater to cover a myriad of issues, from HBCUs to domestic funding priorities to foreign policy, than our very special guest today. Dr. Nee Corte is our national news anchor, educator, and community leader with over 2 decades of advocacy work and policy issues relating to racial equality, human rights, identity, and culture. He is the anchor of the revamped Black Report on Fox Soul, moderator of a More Perfect Union radio show, and the chief national political analyst for KBLA Talk 1580. Dr. Cortez also serves as an adjunct professor at Pepperdine University Graduate School of Education and Psychology. I'm smiling right now, Dr. Cortez, because I want you to know I might need to enroll so I can try and get a PhD under you. He completed his doctorate in organizational leadership and master's in social entrepreneurship and change at Pepperdine, and earned his Bachelor of Arts degree in political science and critical approaches to leadership from the University of Southern California. Dr. Corte, welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Always great to be in your company, brother. How you doing?
My brother. I love the headpiece. How are
you? I can't grow it. And so, I like to wear a lot of caps.
Well, listen, I'm right behind you, bro. I'm right behind you, bro. I'm facing this way. My back is not to this camera.
Wait a minute. That hairline is hanging tough. I can't say the same.
Dr. Corte, welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, sir.
Let me first also say that what an honor it is to be a colleague of yours on the radio. I so enjoy your commentary, your thoughts, your insightful analysis of what's going on in Washington, D.C. And the great thing about this is Dr. Corte knows the breaks. I mean, I don't have to kind of give him signals or anything. He knows when we're in. He knows when we're out. So I can leave him with a lot of very important open-ended conversations. And I hope that all of my listeners will tune in to Dr. Corte's analysis at the end of our day, at the end of our programming day, because his insights really do wrap up what Dominique DePrima says in the morning and what Tavis says in the midday, what Cornel West and Nina Turner say in the afternoon, and what I say for the time that I'm on KBLA and DL Hughley. Dr. Corte brings it all together. And when we come forward, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest will be Dr. Nee Corte, who is going to bring us up to date on the panorama of issues that confront our community in this episode of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop, opt out. Individual results may vary. Consult a doctor prior to use.
If you've struggled to lose weight in the past, this important message is for you because you could lose as much as 50 pounds or more with Zelfie. Zelfie makes it easy and affordable to get weight loss treatment 100% online. Zelfie providers can prescribe FDA-approved GLP-1 weight loss medications clinically shown to help people lose weight like Wegovy, Zepbound, and others. Plus, help get the medication covered by insurance so it's as as little as $0 a month. The doctors are super helpful, and the meds have been a game changer. It's the first program I've had success with. Before Zelty, I was unable to lose weight, even though I was eating healthy and exercising 6 days a week. Zelty helped me not only lose weight, but I feel so much better. Text GOAL to 200-300 to get started today with Zelty and see if weight loss medications like Wegovy or Zepbound are right for you. Don't wait. Text now for a link to your exclusive offer. Text GOAL to 200-300. That's GOAL to 200-300. GOAL to 200-300.
A new day is on the horizon.
Who paved the way for the leaders of today? An untold number of remarkable women, known and unknown, who shaped our past and continue to inspire our future in every field of human endeavor, education, civil rights, technology, and more. Celebrating Women's History Month, we are KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down, get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Dr. D. Cortelai Corte is my very special guest. I hope that all of my listeners will end their day with Dr. Corte. Dr. Corte, welcome back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Dr. Corte, these are unconventional times, and you are our White House correspondent. What is going on? This has been 40 days of complete chaos. And obviously, there is tremendous anxiety in the ether as a result of what is taking place.
Well, Jesse, folks should fasten their seatbelts because I don't see any reason to lessen that anxiety coming around the corner. NBC News reporting that the Dow has fallen 1,000 points. 1,000 points. The NASDAQ has died more than 4% as stock sell-off teams are gathering steam. What's really driving this? People may want to know. Well, it's recession fears. Recession fears have heightened this weekend after President Trump declined to say that there wouldn't be a recession. In an interview with Fox News that aired on Sunday, President Trump responded to a question about the possibility of a recession by saying the economy was going, quotes, through a period of transition. You know, and I know, and so many of your listeners know that the business community, at least they say, they thrive off of certainty. They want as much certainty as any company can get as they develop forecasts for the future, as they make strategic decisions on their products and services to the gain of their investors. And this president so far has provided nothing but uncertainty. Let me tell you how bad it is. Let me tell you just how bad it is. Not only have a lot of businesses sort of given up on the idea that President Trump is going to be able to provide that certainty, but his post-election gains are now at its lowest level since September. And it's essentially unchanged over the past 7 months, right? And so we're not moving forward. we're moving backward. And I think there are a number of folks that really gave short shrift to the work of President Biden and Vice President Harris. Certainly there are a lot of folks that said that the economy was not improving nearly fast enough on their watch. But now, less than 2 months into the new administration, we're seeing that those gains that were hard fought are being eroded very quickly.
Nee, let's chat for a second about, and take your time. Let's chat about the handoff from Joe Biden's economy and Kamala Harris's economy to the Donald Trump economy, and this 40-day focus on DEI at every level of American existence, especially in the public sector, the Pentagon, the Department of Education. It just seems like it's about us. In fact, it is just about us, and its relationship to the market. Now, I've always said that the Negro in America on this show is one and the same with the Constitution. But I have to remind our listeners that Black people were also considered a commodity, that we were part of the economic system, that we are one and the same with the ebbs and flows of the markets themselves. Our labor is at the foundation for the inefficiencies and the efficiencies of the system. Let's talk about the handoff and this whole approach to DEI and the great job that Nina Turner and Cornel West and others are doing on the question of boycotting to get the country's attention.
Well, first things first, Jesse, I would start with the individual that was alleged to be a DEI vice president, and someone they allege would be a DEI president, Kamala Harris. Look, Kamala Harris was very clear throughout the campaign that America had a very clear choice. You could choose to elect somebody who on day one would walk into the Oval Office with a steady to-do list versus someone who would walk into the Oval Office on day one with an enemies list. And it seems that President Trump and his administration have been preoccupied with what feels like a revenge tour. What feels like everything that is important to folks who peddle in grievance politics at the expense of the things that are important to people on Main Street. Look, I just started our conversation talking about the nosedive that stocks are taking on the Dow today, falling 1,000 points. The NASDAQ falling more than 4% as stock sell-offs continue. Well, that means something to our listeners that have stocks. Not every American, has investments tied up in the stock exchange. But most Americans know what it's like to go to the grocery store and see the price of eggs going up and not down. The price
$9 a carton
and not down.
$9 a carton.
$9 a carton. Last time I was at the grocery store, the cheapest carton of eggs I found was $4.99. The most expensive carton was almost $14. Wow. Right. And so, our family of two can endure that. But what about, families out there with young kids, young growing kids, right? And so there has not been any room for confidence at this point. And I think some people are soon going to be questioning the competence of this administration on the economy. This president has been accused by folks on the left, and I think privately, folks in his own party, encouraging him to focus on the economy, so that we avert a recession.
If you could turn your attention and our attention to the idea of what appears to be the president's very narrow focus and the administration's narrow focus on DEI and the economy, and the point that I was making that when you focus on the Negro, you really end up focusing. When you come after us, you just come after everybody. You can't get to us unless you get at the disabled. You get at the veteran. You get at the army officer or the general. We are such an integral and integrated part of the system itself that the very markets, the Dow, the Standard and Poor's 500, And the markets reflect that your behavior towards us, meaning the government's behavior towards us, has profound impacts for the American people.
I think you bring up a really important point that Black folks are a leading social and economic indicator. We are a leading social and economic indicator. How often have we heard that, if America gets a cold, Black folks get pneumonia? It is true when you look back at data related to social and economic mobility. And so, there are companies like Target. There are many companies in the private sector, for example, that find themselves in a conundrum. They know what the data says. They know that the data says that America is browning. They know that demographics are shifting. You know that people who look like you and me and so many of our listeners, are leading innovation. They are leading the future. They are shaping the culture. They know that. And so they know that they can't completely back away from diversity, equity, inclusion. And so they are trying their hardest to play, a masterful game of semantics to continue the work in some form or fashion without any unwanted attention, while, also appearing to be on program with President Trump and the administration's declaration against all things DEI. Fundamentally, to be against DEI is not good for business. They know that, right? And so the trick is how can we make sure that our leaders, learners, and listeners don't catch astray, in this this standoff, this Cold War of sorts when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We see that in this administration that there are a lot of people in charge that seem to have PhDs in petty and are unafraid to say the quiet part out loud. They're unafraid to go after anyone that in any way may be providing safe harbor to people who believe in racial justice, social justice, gender justice, LGBTQ justice. We just saw that Columbia University had $400 million of their federal funding cut.
Wow.
Because they're under investigation about whether or not they are truly a safe environment, creating a safe environment for Jewish students on campus, for example. We're seeing on other campuses, Palestinian student protesters that are being rounded up by ICE, right? And so there's a lot at stake when it comes to folks standing up to this administration, but more importantly, standing on principle. And I think this DEI fight is an important fight. It is an important indicator of where we're going and how quickly we're going to get there. Because, listen, there are folks that believe that the government just needs to get out of the way and allow the free market to do what the free market's going to do, right? We're a capitalist country. Let's steer clear of those social issues, right? But you and I both know that the character of this country has yet again been called into question.
What we also know is that the free markets sell people, and it doesn't want to pay people, and it doesn't want to provide benefits to people. And so amending, if you will, the free market, building a more perfect union in the free marketplace so that we have minimum standards of living, of being able to thrive and to experience benefits, is about the business of social justice. I mean, no one understands that better than you. I wanted to ask you your thoughts on, and you've done some research on the DEI issue and the economic boycotts. This is not our parents' generation of Rosa Parks where we get to sit in. Dr. Jamal Bryant said, the government comes after you now. They target the leadership now. We've learned some lessons from the past. And it appears that our strongest weapon, Dr. Nee, is the idea of the collective boycott. And because they can't put their fingers on any one person who doesn't want to participate in consumption. Dr.
Yeah.
Nee?
No, I think you're right. And, I think we have an opportunity to widen the lens
Mm.
and really interrogate this idea of boycotting and what really is our goal.
Mhm.
What really is our goal? There were a number of people who participated, for example, in the Target boycott. And according to my sources, the folks over at Target, they felt it. They may not want to talk about it in mixed company, but they felt it on February 28th, the last day of Black History Month, might I add. They felt it. And they're still feeling it. They're still feeling it. And I think we have to be cognizant that while it's important for us to demonstrate a willingness to hold any company accountable that says they want to do business with us but don't want to do right by us, right? That's important. That's important as a matter of just our own integrity. But it's also important that we recognize, I think something like 400,000 Black folks work for Target.
Wow.
And there are a number of people who work for Target that are in leadership, including a Target store in Washington, D.C. that I have frequented in recent years on New York Avenue, which, as I understand it, is run by a Black woman. There's another Black woman in charge, underneath her.
Is that the one that leads? Is that the one that leads up the escalator and there's a bike rack to the right?
That's right. That's right.
I know it very well.
Right. That's right. That's right. And so I think it's important that we hold folks accountable, that we call people out, but we also make sure we don't erode the gains that we've made, right? And the whole point of diversity, equity, and inclusion was to create opportunity for folks to have their products on the shelf, for folks to be able to be in leadership roles as staff and on the board, for them to give back to the communities that keep them going, right? And so I think it's not a matter of let's just boycott them and we're not going to go to their businesses. We got to go with demands. So if you're going to boycott somebody, be clear on what your demands are.
Dr. Niku, let me ask you a quick question. We have about 2.5 minutes before we come back or come forward in the break. You're our Washington, D.C., our White House correspondent, our Washington, D.C., Capitol Hill correspondent. Are the Democrats and the resistance that we saw from Al Green and others enough to galvanize a legitimate resistance movement in the country that creates a dynamic at the polls in 2026?
Not yet. Not yet. I think Representative Al Green, I think that moment where he disrupted President Trump's joint congressional address and responded to him saying, "You have no mandate." Well, I think it's up to Democrats on the Hill and Democrats across the country to show them better than you can tell them. And Representative Green sure did tell him. That was an iconic photo, an iconic image that will live in our minds forever. But you can show them better than you can tell them, and that's the challenge for Democrats.
I think one of the great challenges that this moment has created, including our lineup at KBLA, is the resistance that we represent, from Dominique DePrima to Tavis Smiley to Cornel West and Nina Turner to Jesse Jackson Jr. to D.L. Hughley. And then the person who brings it all together at the end of our day is Dr. Nee Corte. Dr. Corte, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, Dr. Corte will take us on to the next level. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. Black New York Attorney General Letitia James is warning businesses against price gouging during current wildfires, reminding them it's illegal under state law. She urges anyone affected to report it to her office, saying there will be consequences for violators. As Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams faces corruption fallout, a Quinnipiac poll shows his approval at a historic low of 20%, with 56% of voters calling for his resignation. Nearly a month after going missing on Lake Oconee, the body of African-American teacher Barry Jones has been found. Search crews recovered him about 100 yards from where his fiancée, who was an HBCU Spelman University professor, was found. And attorneys general from 15 states are clarifying that diversity programs remain legal. They say President Trump's order and an education department directive don't ban them, and a Supreme Court ruling only bars race-based admissions, not efforts to diversify applicants. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Think It Up is an initiative to activate student-powered, teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning experiences in your classrooms today? Join at thinkitup.org.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The UCLA women's basketball team is back at number 1 in the Associated Press Top 25 poll. UCLA returned to number 1 after Sunday's win over USC for the Big Ten Conference Tournament Championship. The Bruins, 30-2, were number 1 for 12 weeks until they lost to USC on February 13th. The Trojans and Bruins are a combined 58-5. The rest of the top 5 this week: South Carolina, UConn, USC, and Texas. The Chargers signed linebacker Khalil Mack to a one-year deal for $18 million. The 34-year-old Mack was a free agent. Mack had 6 sacks last season and missed only 1 game. NFL Hall of Fame running back Eddie George is leaving Tennessee State to coach Bowling Green University. George was at Tennessee State for 4 years. He led the HBCU school to the Division I AA playoffs last season and was the Coach of the Year in the Ohio Valley Conference. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Fatherhood includes being present during pregnancy and beyond, supporting your partner, advocating for your baby, and ensuring a healthy birth. Black fathers play a key role in reducing maternal and infant health disparities, and your involvement starts during pregnancy. Join the free AIM Fatherhood Program today and learn how to support your partner, advocate for your baby's health, and connect with other fathers committed to healthier births. Visit blackinfantsandfamilies.org/fatherhood to get started.
We've got a lot to talk about.
On January 7th, 2025, the Eaton Canyon Fire scorched Altadena, torching everything in its path. Homes, wealth, and legacy burned in one night. But will Altadena rise from the ashes? I'm James Farr. On the Conversation Live Altadena Rising, we're chronicling the recovery, the resilience, and justice for the nation. This is the show of record, unapologetically progressive. We're not blacking down. So join me, James Farr, on the Conversation Live, Altadena Rising, every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific with the rebroadcast on Sunday at noon.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is Dr. Nee Cordelli-Corte. Dr. Corte is our White House correspondent, all things Washington, D.C. It is impossible just to read the transcript of the president's message to Congress. You have to be there. You have to see it. You have to study the body language of people in the room, the reaction of the Republicans, the reaction of the Democrats. Do we stand or sit for the little boy who has the brain cancer and the young man who gets accepted to the military academy, and how we treat the woman whose son is released from Russian prison? All of those dynamics are not quite the same as just reading a speech. And the person who brings the heat to us is Dr. Nee Cordelli-Corte. He is my guest in this hour. On Wednesday, our very special guest in this very same hour will be none other than Don Lemon. Don has a lot to say about what's going on in this country. And now I want to turn my attention back to my special guest, who is the author of Kamala, The Motherland and Me. Dr. Corte, tell us about your book, Kamala, The Motherland and Me.
Well, Jesse, I call it required reading for this inflection point in not just U.S. history, but world history. I had the assignment of a lifetime, being able to travel overseas aboard Air Force Two with then Vice President Harris. We traveled to Ghana, to Tanzania, and Zambia on a 9-day tour. And I had a chance to witness her leadership on the world stage. I did not go on this assignment thinking I was going to write a book about it. I thought, okay, I'm going to come back and, put together, a news package about it. I'm going to come back and maybe do a limited series podcast run about it. And that would be that. But as you know very well, sometimes you get that tap on the shoulder. And the Spirit will lead you in a direction maybe you didn't intend to go. But this is the product of that experience. And I really encourage folks to, you can go on Mahogany Books to pick it up. Mahogany Book, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, any online retailer, and dig into it. I think folks will find it refreshing. One of the best compliments I got about this book early on, Jesse, was from a brother in DC who said to me, your book is a Kamala Harris myth buster. And as much as they try to make it seem like she's not like us, it's actually more like us than I thought.
Oh, wow. Did you just put her in the middle of the halftime show at the Super Bowl?
Kendrick did it, not me. Blame Kendrick.
Kamala, The Motherland and Me. Dr. Nee Cordelli-Corte is the author, and he is our very special guest. And he's also our White House correspondent, so he's got a lot of work to do on behalf of KBLA. Hey, Doc, let me ask you this question about the street heat in an administration that has only been in office for, I guess, a little less than 50 days. You're seeing explosions in activity in state capitals around our country, in universities. You mentioned the Palestinian students who are being sent home, and others who are being told they better not protest or they run the risk of losing their student scholarships. Jamal Bryant, who was on our show, said that pastors are in fear of their 501c3 status. They're also in fear of being treated like Jeremiah Wright. He said the great irony, of course, is that Donald Trump, is seen as the second coming of the evangelicals, but blacks are told, y'all better keep church separated from the state. Is this an unprecedented activity that we're looking at across the country just 50 days into a presidential administration?
I think it's cyclical. And one of the things that I absolutely love about you and love about this show is that you always bring the historical context. You remind us that history somehow has a way of repeating itself. And, in this moment, there are lots of comparisons that can be drawn to the 1920s, the Roaring 20s in the United States, where, there were a number of corporations whose greed and ambitions were being fed. But in the midst of that, we also saw the Black Renaissance, the Harlem renaissance sort of bloom, right? And so it's a reminder that even in the midst of chaos, even in the midst of confusion, even in the midst of really hard times, there are beautiful things that can happen, and oftentimes they happen in community. And so, it's important that we're reminded of that, But I think, where we are at, these are troubling times. I was just reading earlier that a lot of Black young people are experiencing a bit of mental health crisis. I mean, look at what's happening today in Washington, D.C. Black Lives Matter Plaza, a symbol, not just to the nation, but a symbol to the world, is being ripped up. And it's being ripped up. Why? Because there are Republicans in the House of Representatives that said to DC Mayor Muriel Bowser that if you don't get rid of that, we may cut your transportation funding or worse. Or worse. Right. And so we've got to be very clear. There's nothing about this that is normal. We know that, there's a winner and a loser in elections and things happen. But a lot of what is happening is beyond the pale. Think about it. You have an administration that is so focused on, and a Republican Party that's so focused on ripping up Black Lives Matter Plaza, but you're not paying attention to the economy. Stocks are plummeting. But you worried about Black Lives Matter Plaza? And so that should be an indication to our leaders, learners, and listeners that maybe this wasn't really about the price of eggs. Maybe this was about something else. Dare I say something maybe even more nefarious. Right? But it's a reminder, we've been here before. We've had leaders that have peddled in white supremacy before. Right? And fasten your seatbelt, right? But there are tools still in our arsenal to be able to fight back, including the courts, right? And just last Thursday, I attended Leader Jeffrey's weekly press conference, and he took the opportunity to remind us, that the Trump administration has not won in the courts yet. When they've been sued, they haven't won yet. There were 2 cases that went up to the Supreme Court that they didn't win.
But
right?
it sure feels like they're winning, though. I mean, just the sheer amount of news and executive orders and tweets are so overwhelming. It just feels like by the time the Congress gets around to the idea that maybe we can challenge them in the courts, or it hasn't been codified in terms of legislation, it just feels like we're on the losing end of the stick. Now, I know that we're coming forward in just a moment, but I do want to ask you this question. In these 2 minutes, I ask all of the great thinkers, and I don't ask this question of all of my guests, but I'm certainly going to ask this question of you, given the broad scope that your mind represents. Why hasn't the white community produced a Martin Luther King Jr.?
Why hasn't the white community produced a Martin Luther King Jr.?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I don't think that there ever could be another Martin Luther King Jr. Part of what produced a Martin Luther King Jr. Was the environment that he grew up in. It was the climate in the country. I mean, there are a lot of factors and a lot of heat, quite frankly, that helped to produce Martin Luther King Jr. But when I think of some of the white abolitionists in history, for example, people like John Brown, right? John Brown should be celebrated in history for good reason, right? There is a legacy of white people that have met the moment, of white people who have challenged other white folks, who have been a part of raising the consciousness of this nation. And I think this moment, it's summoning them.
I think that's right, too. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is our White House correspondent, Dr. D. Corte. Dr. Corte, when we come forward, we'll complete our conversation. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is our White House correspondent, our D.C. correspondent, our Capitol Hill correspondent, all things the Supreme Court correspondent.
That's why they call me the salt and pepper ministry over here. That's why I'm so salt and pepper.
The hardest working man in radio, Dr. Nee Corte. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My brother, let me ask you this this question in our final segment. Is there any chance that the Congress or that the process will return to the regular order? It just seems that 50 days in with this kind of chaos that we're looking at another 3 years, 3 3/4 of a years of more chaos. And we really have to pick and choose what it is we're going to fight, or we're just going to be overwhelmed emotionally and psychologically.
I think you're right. I mean, again, I say, as I did at the top of this conversation, fasten your seatbelt, because this is for the voters who showed up on election day. This is what they voted for. No one can claim to be surprised at how the Trump administration moves, what they prioritize. He was president before. He is now president again. During the campaign, he was very clear on what his priorities were. It was very clear on who the coalition of supporters was, and they're acting on their agenda. Even the Washington Post is reporting today that the GOP spending bill would lead to $1 billion in just DC cuts. Just DC cuts, right? And so remember, I had mentioned that DC Mayor Muriel Bowser was threatened with a $250 million cut to her transportation budget if she didn't get rid of the Black Lives Matter Plaza. Well, that $250 million was a part of a more than $1 billion line items and cuts to DC alone. And so if DC is any indicator of what other mayors, particularly Black mayors across the country, have to look forward to, what cities with large Black communities have to look forward to, fasten your seatbelt. We have at least until the midterm elections, until we can perhaps, right the ship, move the ship in a different direction. But until then, a lot of this is going to be par for the course.
Did they vote for? You said that this is what Donald Trump's supporters voted for. Did they vote for 80,000 cuts at the Veterans Administration, 80,000 job cuts? I mean, the elimination of USAID, the soft power that America has in the world. Did they vote for allowing Russia to dictate the peace agreement in Ukraine? The things that are so shocking to me is that many of Trump's supporters are also, Dr. Corte, some of the very people who are hurting the most. They are struggling the most. And some of the pushback increasingly becomes some form of buyer's remorse.
That's a fair question. I appreciate the question. I think there's data out there, enough data to suggest that a lot of folks who showed up for Trump on election day voted for a disruptor in chief. They voted for somebody to disrupt business as usual. They really weren't paying all that much attention to the details. And so I don't think anybody supported one policy over the next necessarily. I mean, we didn't even see the president really drilling down that much on policy positions. Remember, during the debate with Vice President Harris, when healthcare came up, and he felt quite comfortable saying we have the concept of a plan, never getting into the details of it. And so I think that may be reflective of the people who showed up in support of him. They weren't, really caring too much about the nitty-gritty details. But I think more than anything, they might have been just sort of fed up with Washington, maybe captivated by the entertainment value that is a part of the Trump brand, and said, what do we have to lose? And, here they are, figuring out the answer to that question, in some cases, the hard way.
Dr. Corte, share with us more about your show, about your vision for the show, and why it really does every single day sum up all of the rest of our work.
Sure, sure. Well, I had this vision to create a show that could become a community for folks like you and me, folks that are in the arena, people that are doing the heavy lifting, people that are leaning into the responsibility of building a more perfect union the best way they know how. And some of these folks are operating in the tech industry, the entertainment industry, in government, on Broadway, in film and music, and everywhere in between. And so my hope is that every day when folks tune in from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern, that we can give them their daily political news digest and really offer them what we believe they need to know without being too gratuitous. But we can also offer people some inspiration. We can offer some context. Let's get beyond the headlines. There are plenty of human interest stories out there that I believe and you believe don't get nearly as much attention. And so we do our best to pass the mic to people who have something of consequence to say. And so
That right there now, that right there.
And so with that, we welcome all of your listeners to be a part of our community of leaders, learners, and listeners that are looking for some inspiration, in some cases, some respite from the news of the day. I think we do a good job at blending the two.
And I think you do an extraordinary job. I want to share with everyone that that this lineup on KBLA has been carefully thought out, from the cup of coffee and the egg sandwich that we have with Dominique in the morning to the historic journalist and award-winning journalism of Tavis Smiley, of the scholarship of Cornell West, and the activism of Nina Turner, and the little contribution I offer in the afternoon, and then take a little pressure off of us, the humor of D.L. Hughley, but also seriousness, the candid insights that he offers, and then someone who can look at the entire scope of the day, Dr. Nee Quartalai Corte, our White House correspondent, in the bowels of the Congress of the United States, the White House, the Supreme Court, bringing us the scoops, bringing us the insights on what we can expect tomorrow, and helping position our minds for well, how about for a good night's sleep? Dr. Forte.
And thank you, Jesse Jackson Jr., for your work and your witness, your work and witness combined with everyone you just named, especially our friend, our brother, our chief visionary officer at KBLA, Tavis Smiley. I think that's exactly what we all need to meet this moment.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Thank you, Dr. Corte, for being my very special guest.